Hello and welcome to another teaching from 119 Ministries. Our ministry believes that the whole Bible is true and directly applicable to our lives today. If you would like to know more about what we believe and teach, please visit us at testeverything.net. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel down below. We hope that you enjoy studying and testing the following teaching. A lot of believers wonder about the Torah's commandments regarding fat and blood. What do these commandments mean exactly? Most of us eat meat on a regular basis, and we often share meals together in faith-based fellowship. Thus, it is important for us to properly understand these commandments. To what degree are we to avoid eating fat and blood in meat? Let's look at a few passages regarding fat and blood. Leviticus chapter 3, verses 14 through 17. Then he shall offer from it, as his offering for a food offering to Yahweh, the fat covering the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys with the fat that is on them at the loins and the long lobe of the liver, that he shall remove with the kidneys. And the priest shall burn them on the altar as a food offering with a pleasing aroma. All fat is Yahweh's. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwelling places, that you eat neither fat nor blood. Leviticus 7, 22 through 27. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel, saying, You shall eat no fat of ox or sheep or goat. The fat of an animal that dies of itself, and the fat of one that is torn by beast, may be put to any other use, but on no account shall you eat it. For every person who eats of the fat of an animal of which a food offering may be made to Yahweh shall be cut off from his people. Moreover, you shall eat no blood whatever, whether of fowl or of animal, in any of your dwelling places. Whoever eats any blood, that person shall be cut off from his people. Let's start with the topic of fat. Leviticus chapter 3, verses 14 through 17 is concerning the offering of entrails to Yahweh. There's a particular type of hard fatty tissue surrounding the kidneys and liver. In a cow, this would be called suet. This fat is forbidden for us to eat regardless of where we live, in the context of temple offerings. Leviticus chapter 7, verses 22 through 23 appears to directly state that we should eat no fat altogether. This would include all fat, not just the hard fatty tissue surrounding the liver and kidneys, and this is also in the context of temple offerings. In verse 24, the directive to not eat fat is specific to an ox, sheep, or goat. But more specifically, the context is referring to the ox, sheep, or goat that is being offered up to Yahweh. Verse 25. For every person who eats of the fat of an animal of which a food offering may be made to Yahweh shall be cut off from his people. We must keep the commandment in context. The fat not covering the organs is a desirable and nutritional part of animal meat, and it would be tempting to keep the fat for oneself in an offering to Yahweh, which is the focus of Leviticus 3. The fat of an animal being offered up to Yahweh is not to be stolen from Yahweh. It is to be offered up to Yahweh along with the rest of the animal. Again, we must keep the commandment in context. Verse 24 makes specific mention of a different situation. We're not to also eat fat from an animal that has died of itself or has been torn by beasts. Leviticus 7:24. The fat of an animal that dies of itself and the fat of one that is torn by a beast may be put to any other use, but on no account shall you eat it. This makes sense because according to the Torah, any animals met with such criteria we are already forbidden to eat. Leviticus 22, verse 8. He shall not eat what dies of itself or is torn by beasts, and so make himself unclean by it. I am Yahweh. So why is this mentioned in the context of fat in Leviticus 7:24? We cannot eat such fat or offer it up to Yahweh. However, Yahweh says we can put such fat to other good use. For example, fat can be used to make soap. In such instances, fat from animals that died by such means cannot be eaten, but used for other useful purposes. Some people, in misunderstanding this commandment, set out to salt and dry all of their meat to remove all fat. Think about that for a moment. When the Passover lamb was slain on the 14th day of the first month, do you think they had time to salt and dry all the Passover meat to remove all of the fat? Of course not. the Passover was eaten within hours of it being slain. It would have been impossible to remove all the fat from the Passover lamb that was eaten, nor was it necessary, as that was not the context of the commandment found in Leviticus 7. There will always be some degree of fat in all meat, even in the Passover meal. A fatty animal in the scriptures is considered to be desirable. Luke chapter 15. But the father said to his servants, "Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to be merry. A calf that has been well fed will consequently have more fat. So fat in meat is okay, and it is to be expected. It does not contradict Leviticus chapter 3 or chapter 7, as Leviticus 3 is focused on the hard fatty tissue that surrounds the kidneys and liver, and only in the context of the temple offerings. Leviticus 7 is also in the context of not eating the fat that is to be offered up to Yahweh. Of course, we are not to eat the fat of an animal that dies naturally or is torn by beasts. In fact, we are not to eat anything from such animals that have died in such ways. So, what about the blood? The blood found in muscle is different than the blood found in veins. Hemoglobin versus myoglobin. It is literally impossible to remove all the myoglobin from meat. Most meat will not contain much, if any, hemoglobin. By contrast to hemoglobin, which is found in circulating red blood cells or erythrocytes, myoglobin is found intracellularly in body tissues. Both hemoglobin and myoglobin are red in color. We are not to eat any blood in any of our meat, regardless of where we live. Leviticus 7:26 through 27. Moreover, you shall eat no blood whatever, whether of fowl or of animal, in any of your dwelling places. Whoever eats any blood, that person shall be cut off from his people. This passage specifically mentions in our dwelling places, so we know that these instructions apply in any situation, not just when someone is offering an animal to Yahweh in the tabernacle or temple. The blood that flows through our veins, hemoglobin, should be allowed to drain from the animal prior to eating. This is already standard practice today. Often, the red liquid you might see surrounding meat you might buy in the United States is artificial. Often a red dye in water is added to make the meat appear more fresh or less gray. Myoglobin is naturally found in the muscle tissue, and there is nothing that one can do to remove all of it, as opposed to the hemoglobin. The Passover meal would not have only contained fat, it would have also contained myoglobin. In the ancient Near East, pagan nations would ceremonially drink blood of strangled animals and be involved with temple prostitution and the worship of idols. However, Yahweh does not want to be worshipped like false gods were worshipped. This is why in Acts 15, James states that new Gentile believers should first focus on immediately ceasing all idol worship and related activity, and then learn the Torah every Shabbat. Acts chapter 15. Therefore, my judgment is that we should not trouble those of the Gentiles who turn to God, but should write to them to abstain from the things polluted by idols, and from sexual immorality, and from what has been strangled, and from blood. For from ancient generations, Moses has had in every city those who proclaim him, for he is read every Sabbath in the synagogues. In summary, animal fat can be eaten as long as it is not fat from an animal that died in of itself, or is the hard fatty tissue surrounding the animal's internal organs if that animal is being offered up to Yahweh. Fat from an animal that died in of itself can be used for purposes that do not involve human consumption, such as soap, candles, or other purposes. Regarding blood, it is standard practice for most butchers to drain blood or hemoglobin. However, it should be recognized that removing 100% of all hemoglobin is impossible regardless of methods used. More importantly, the red liquid that we find in muscle tissue is actually myoglobin and not hemoglobin. Hemoglobin takes oxygen from lungs and transports to the rest of the body and is what we would normally consider to be blood, while myoglobin is a protein structure that stores oxygen in muscle tissue. We hope that this teaching has blessed you, and remember, continue to test everything. Shalom.
It is because of you, our generous supporters, who make it possible to offer these high-quality teachings completely free of charge. If you feel led to support 119 Ministries so that we can continue this effort, please visit testeverything.net and click on the Support 119 tab. Learn how you can partner with us to take the whole Word of God to the nations.